definition of Zionism was founded in 1923 by this guy, Jabotinsky. He published this article, The Iron Wall. And this really marks the transition of Zionism from this socialist, albeit pseudo-socialist, right? There's social democratic, like it's chauvinistic, white supremacist socialism to just straight up fucking fascism, right? Like Jabotinsky, like really admired Mussolini, the Italian fascist leader. Mussolini really admired Jabotinsky. Basically marks this right-wing, very sharp turn, and this is where the birth of the modern-day Likud party comes from, where they begin. Hi there. How's it going? Good. Sorry, it's so crowded. Oh my God, can I make it quick? Okay, when I was in Sunday school, I had a teacher tell me that the IDF was moral because they would drop pamphlets or leaflets
before they
2 minutes before they would bomb a school.
Yeah, or a hospital.
Or a library.
You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
What?
It's like the Joker.
Also, like when I was in high school, we had a club called Stand With Us that would we brought in Israeli soldiers to come and talk, and they gave out, they're like, yeah, these are little books we keep in our boots that teach us our morals, and it's like don't shoot children in the head, really basic military code.
Guess I haven't read that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, this really marks a very as if ethno-nationalism isn't already fascist in character. It marks a very explicit fascist characterization or tendency in the Zionist movement. So this is a quote from Jabotinsky. Again, you don't have to read the whole thing. The bolding is basically pointing to where, again, this very notable not founder of Zionism, but very notable leader in the Zionist movement is very explicit about colonization and how it is colonizing.
You must provide a garrison for the land, or find some rich man or benefactor who will provide a garrison on your behalf.
Right. Yeah. That's that on that.
Zionism is a colonization adventure.
I love it.
This is the thing, it was, Herzl, when he imagined the state, he wasn't Palestine, that's where it's gonna be. He was just imagining a state anywhere. Where can we put all the prosecuted Jews where they can live safely and in a way that they won't experience this deep anti-Semitism and racism. And he had conjured up so a lot of it was the first offer was from the British government, the Zionists in Britain were okay, how about the highlands of British East Africa, so their colonies, they were offering it to them, and he refused this offer because too many Zionist Jews in the organization were already focused on attaining Palestine, just because there is historic ties to Jewish people there. And so Argentina, Uganda, there were different places across the world they were looking at.
They looked at specifically Argentina, Uganda, and I don't remember where in Egypt, but somewhere in Egypt.
Yeah, somewhere in Egypt as well. But we have to pay attention to it would have been the same thing. It would have literally been the same thing anywhere. It just happened to be Palestine. So this was a force that had to have been shot down from the very beginning. It just didn't, because it was so strong with how many governments were supporting it everywhere, Western Europe, Britain, the US, all the US presidents were for this, by the way.
Because it was a really great way to get rid of all of the Jews.
Exactly. Yeah, everyone, it was just get rid of the Jews, spree, and also imperialistic stronghold in the Middle East, which we were missing. Yeah,
which is really interesting that the British did initially. So Herzl, when he first conceptualized pre-state Zionism, you're right, it wasn't tied to a state. But over time, he was pretty adamant about I want it in Palestine. I think it's interesting that the British rejected the Palestine plan at first, because they were selling it to the British as, one, this is a great bulwark against Arab revolution in the Middle East, and two, this is a great way for us to help maintain your strategic interests, such as the Suez Canal. But the British said no, and I'm actually not sure why. They were going to go with the Uganda plan, and then Herzl fucking kicked the bucket, which is, it was 100 years ago, so it was bound to happen, but still nice. And the World Zionist Organization scrapped the plan, and we're no, we're going with Palestine. That's basically the idea that Zionism is a vehicle to fulfill the messianic prophecy of the Jewish people. That Jews need to all situate themselves in Israel to instigate the coming of the Messiah, because Jewish people believe that the Messiah has to come. And this is like really closely paralleled by like Christian evangelical Zionism,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is their prophetic
Yeah.
thing, which is like the second coming of Christ versus
Yeah.
like the unnamed Messiah.
You'll see the Christians come in here a lot.
You'll see some goofy ass.
Yeah.
And there's some really like weird concepts that come out of this. Like, there's this idea that is it the third temple? It's the third temple, right? The first two, I don't know. Third, yeah. The third temple is gonna like fall out of the sky and land on the Dome of the Rock. And so a lot of people, there are a lot of Israelis that are like, well, let's just make it easier and like destroy the Dome of the Rock now, and that way like either it falls or we'll just build it if it doesn't fall. So like, there's a lot of like this is like the nuttiest.
This is galaxy brain. Yeah.
Does anyone know anything about the symbolism of the red calf? It's like the birth of a red calf is prophecy.
Oh, yeah. There is like the
Babylon.
idea that like there are like these certain things that have to happen, and one of them is like the birth of a red calf, which every few years you'll see an Israeli article, they'll be like, oh my god, we got one. I think something that's important to point out is that anti-Semitism is a very real thing, and the people prior to in 1917, whatever. Anti-Semitism was something that ravaged their lives. And a lot of these, like under the Tsar, they had no civil rights, like liberties. So, what's sad about this whole thing is that there was these exploited people that were being further exploited by this like capitalist element within their culture that was saying like, yeah, you're treated terribly, and instead of fighting for your liberation in the land that you actually know as your homeland, why don't you fight for liberation in a land you've absolutely never been to and have no ties to? So anti-Semitism certainly is what spurred this, but it was exploited in a direction where it was not beneficial to the Jewish people.
Don't be afraid that people will always attack that as, oh, you're being anti-Semitic. Like, you know your theory now. Like, I really hope that like you know the difference between being anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist. It like there are blurred lines because there's Zionist Jews, and you can be anti-Semitic against a Zionist Jew because they're still Jewish at the end of the day. But criticizing that theory, criticizing that school of thought that is racist, that is ethno-nationalist, that has perpetrated genocide and like tremendous things against the Palestinian people. You have to keep paying attention to that and just keep focusing on that, and that's what you're criticizing. You're not criticizing someone's Jewishness and their religion and your ethnicity.